One must do one's duty, even when it isn't pretty. Isn't that what you always say?
Doing your duty isn't always pretty. A few people on top doing their duty is the only thing that keeps us from savagery.
Sorry, I've been in the woods for a few days. I'm not sure why. I should take my... We Happy Few is a game with two very distinctive halves. On one hand you have the creative but oftentimes frustrating gameplay mechanics, and on the other hand you have a compelling, emotional dystopian story.
We didn't want the Germans to be angry, did we?
When I was playing it, my mind would constantly jump between thinking, oh, okay, more fetch quests, to, oh god, what is going to happen to Arthur, in what ended up being an experience that was exhausting but worth it. Now, I've talked about the main game already on this channel, and if you haven't seen it and you didn't understand what the hell was going on with that opening there, then I would recommend you go and watch it, but if you're okay with spoilers, then that video is not required viewing at all. No, in this video, I am going to be talking about a little DLC called We All Fall Down, which, I'm not exaggerating, fixes all the problems I had with the original game. It has a really unique style, even different from the base game, a beautiful self-contained story with a heart-wrenching ending, a compelling protagonist, and to top it all off, it's genuinely fun to play all the way through. They truly did smash it with the gameplay here, stripping down all the unnecessary stuff and just adding a few more features that really enhance everything. Using my whip to zip to different rooftops, avoiding enemies in actually creative ways was such a breath of fresh air compared to the procedurally generated streets I was used to. And then the update to combat was just the cherry on top. But I'm not really here to talk about gameplay, and you're probably not here to hear about it. Bottom line is, I was pleasantly surprised. What I do want to talk about is duty. In the most basic terms, duty is the moral or legal obligation to do something. And by something, I mean almost anything, ranging from a soldier's duty to protect their country, to a citizen's duty to uphold the law, to my duty to recycle and walk my dog. Cicero, an ancient Roman philosopher and orator, said that duty can arise from 4 different sources. 1, as a result of being human. 2, as a result of one's particular place in life, like one's job, one's country, one's family. 3, as a result of one's character. And 4, as a result of one's moral expectations for oneself. Now, I'm not entirely sure what the difference between 3 and 4 is on that list, but I do think this Cicero guy might have been onto something. There's not just one kind of duty, but people act like there is all the time. For example, very patriotic and nationalistic people will often have their duty to their country and their moral duty down as exactly the same thing, which obviously can lead to hatred and division. And it's insane to me that we seem to be forgetting the first point. Are duties that come as a result of being human, like acting for the benefit of your fellow people and providing aid for those in need. But we'll come back to all that later. Victoria Byng's life was defined by duty. Her mother, an Indian aristocrat, was devoted to the Indian independence movement and freeing her people, while her father, a British general, was devoted to his country and his job. Their senses of duty were equally strong but exactly opposite. Victoria ended up leaving her mother behind and settling in Wellington, Wales with her father. They lived through World War II, the British surrender, the very bad thing, and after joy was introduced to the town, Victoria became a prominent leader. This was in no way a good thing, and led to her having to make an impossible choice during the events of We All Fall Down. To explore why, we should talk about the story, and I should change into something slightly more comfortable. Much better, much better. The chronology of We Happy Few breaks off from ours when America fails to intervene in the Second World War and Europe falls to German occupation. German forces spread to every part of Britain, including the small island town of Wellington, Wales, where the local government quickly fell apart. Instead, 2 military officers, General Byng and Colonel von Stauffenberg, assumed control, and in 1947 they were offered a deal by the occupying army. If the town handed over all the children aged under 13, the Germans would leave. Byng, motivated by his duty, agreed, and this event would come to be known as the Very Bad Thing. Just before the train came to take the kids away, a local teacher would do her duty too, playing with and distracting them from their impending fate. Her name was Victoria Byng, daughter of General Byng, and the event left her racked with guilt. In fact, it left a collective shadow of guilt over the entire town. In 1951, a chemist named Harry Hayworth was commissioned to make a drug to stop this guilt, and by 1953, joy was being mass-produced. Suddenly, people were happy again, and their shameful memories were fading away. Victoria, a strong supporter of joy, became head of the Department of Archives, Printing and Recycling, as well as executive counsel to the executive committee. She ran the Happy Faces campaign and even conceived of the idea to put joy in the water supply.
Dose the water supply. Everyone drinks tea. You don't even have to tell them at first.
Despite Hayworth's concerns about the longevity of joy, by Victoria and her father's standards, the town was absolutely thriving. And luckily, Hayworth went on holiday in 1960 and was replaced as head of joy research and development by Anton Verloc. Through all this chaos, Victoria was doing her duty. And then, in the mid-1960s, not long after reporting Arthur Hastings as a downer,
Oh my lord. He's a downer. Call security. We've got a downer.
Victoria is forced off her joy.
Give me my joy! Why won't you give me my joy?
I'll get you.
And the story of We All Fall Down begins.
Got to find a mood booth.
The DLC opens with a long wander through the streets of the Dunkerton district as Victoria desperately searches for a mood booth to take some joy. But what she sees is devastating. The citizens, the wellies, are starving. Some are eating charcoal, police officers are intimidating people to hand over food, some lie passed out on the ground, and a brutal plague has spread from the garden district to the streets of the village.
Nothing to worry about. How long has there been a plague in the streets?
Yet people think everything is okay because of joy. They are laughing amicably to their graves.
What are we doing here?
Taking our joy, I hope?
Victoria decides not to take her joy and goes to tell her father about the situation, but his response is cold and dismissive.
We can't do nothing.
Nothing is exactly what we must do. If our people realize they're running out of food, they'll kill each other for the last box of V-meat.
He already knew, and he trusts that Anton Verloc will come up with a solution. Though she is doubtful, Victoria retains hope that he has things under control. As we can see from her diary, she looks up to her father hugely and chalks up his dismissiveness to being too important to worry about starvation, I guess. But when she meets with Verloc, he has an even worse outlook.
But even if it doesn't work, at some point, we'll be down to a sustainable population.
There's no food coming over the bridge, and we're not growing any. So how many of us are sustainable, Tony?
He expects everyone to die, and he won't do anything to stop it. Baffled, Victoria decides that she must get everyone off their joy herself and prove to the entire town how bad the situation is. She first shuts down the joy allocation hub, then cuts off the water supply and sees people begin to react.
My God.
Before this, people off their joy were second-class citizens called downers, either sent out to the fringes of the island or beaten to death. Now, everyone is a downer. Victoria witnesses rioting break out before she is caught and arrested by bobbies.
What have I done?
Oh, Miss Byng, what have you done?
After escaping her cell, she has a final confrontation with her father. In the conversation, he assures her that you must do your duty even though people might hate you for it, before suggesting that they hide out in a bunker where he has been hoarding food.
You've been stockpiling food. People are starving! We have a duty!
Our duty now is to rescue what we can. Salvage something for this whole rotten mess, even if it's only 2 or 3 people.
This angers Victoria, and she pushes him to the ground and leaves. She goes and collects bombs intended for her own house by rebels, plants them around Hayworth Labs, and escapes the explosions just as a tape begins to play. The last tape of Uncle Jack, the face of propaganda.
They have to stop taking the joy.
Stop it!
You have to broadcast the tape.
Right, I could do that. But you won't, will you?
Victoria takes one last walk through town, seeing bodies hanging from roofs, impaled by flagpoles, and lying in the streets. Happy face masks are littered everywhere. It is a disturbing parallel to the beginning of the DLC. Although the joy is gone, the very thing causing the destruction and starvation in the beginning, things are only worse now, and Victoria utters the line,
I am become death, destroyer of worlds.
The game ends with this scene.
You lot told us everything was fine. You told us to pretend it was.
We all wanted to pretend. Don't you remember?
We're all leaving. There's nothing left here.
You can go wherever you like.
Just not with us.
But I saved them.
They may never forgive you for that.
What else could I have done?
You don't always get a bright, shiny medal for doing your duty.
What did you say?
That's what I always used to tell your father. Come back to India, Vicky. You miss me. And I'm probably still alive.
Goodbye, Mother. I hope you'll be proud of me.
Victoria is left alone. Part of me wishes there was a more cathartic ending, that she could aid in the rebuilding of society with the other survivors, or I could at least feel justified sympathizing with her. But the fact is, the people are right. It was her. She was a leader of this regime, and she wasn't being manipulated by joy. She told people to pretend things were okay. She actively controlled entire divisions of the administration. When Ollie confronts her in Act 3 of the main game, she's not in a joy-fueled haze when she says this.
There's not a thing I can tell you that you don't already know. Is there?
No. It's better not to know.
She's on her joy, but she's actively aware of what's happening. She just refuses to acknowledge it. However, I do feel justified in sympathizing with her when we learn about her family. Oh, I must have forgotten to mention. Throughout the game, we see a number of hallucinations of Victoria's mother, as well as flashbacks to the times when they lived in India. This kind of reframes the whole situation. But apart from Victoria's personal ending, which we will come back to, We All Falls Down got me thinking about other dystopias which end with the regime collapsing. And unsurprisingly, it's not all that...
We must burn the books, Montag. All the books.
Unlike the dystopias I talked about in my last video, 1984, Brave New World, and certainly Brazil, Fahrenheit 451 has somewhat of a positive ending. Published in 1953 by Ray Bradbury, it takes place in a world which has entirely banned books. Guy Montag is a fireman whose duty is to find and burn said books, which people still secretly hold on to. Guy's sense of duty is shaken by multiple events. First, meeting a stranger named Clarice, who asks him strange questions about happiness. Second, the near suicide of his wife Mildred, who insists she is happy as she stares at the walls of TVs in their home, refusing to have a real conversation with him. Third, the harrowing moment he watches a woman burn herself alive after her books are taken from her. These experiences drive him to start reading books, including a copy of the Bible, and discuss them with an English professor named Faber. Eventually, his wife and her friends turn him in after he attempts to read poetry to them, and he escapes by burning his captain alive and fleeing the city. He meets a group of drifters who have all memorized books for when the day they can start reprinting them comes. And soon after, an atomic bomb is dropped onto the city. In the aftermath of the destruction, the exiles return to start rebuilding society. Now, there are some immediate similarities to We Happy Few. For example, with the censorship in removing any media that is at all challenging. In Fahrenheit 451, replacing it with vapid TV, and in We Happy Few, keeping all forms of media but censoring the content heavily. I find Mildred's character especially interesting. The way she insists that she is happy and that she loves her parlour TV wall family, yet overdoses on sleeping pills. It's clear that something is wrong, dissatisfaction is brewing beneath the surface. Similarly, in We Happy Few, there is the appearance of a happy society, everyone on their joy, yet events like this still happen.
Bon voyage. Did they commit suicide?
And wider issues are just being ignored. In Fahrenheit 451, it's the imminent atomic destruction, and in We Happy Few, it's the food shortage. The endings are obviously similar, with everything being destroyed, but there is a key difference. Guy is accepted by the exiles. Victoria was not just complicit in the regime, she was a proponent, and therefore she is not forgiven. Her version of leadership, the general's version, was not about being the most important of the people in the town, but being above the people. Her duty was to the town, not to the town's people, and that ended up being her key mistake. But then again, she did change. Through her mother's influence, she went against her own interest to destroy the joy, knowing that people would hate her. If you look at this story in a vacuum like the DLC does, then you can't help but sympathize and empathize with her. She made the right decision, the tough decision, and yet people hate her anyway. This is what this game is about. Fahrenheit 451, and I hate to say this, it's a dystopian classic, has a simplified concept of duty. I'd say the way the book is written, it's very forgiving to the protagonist, Guy, and all the people who supported and even led the regime die in the end. It's quite clear what the right and wrong thing to do is, and Guy's internal struggle is in no way controversial or divisive to the audience. Now, this is definitely purposeful. Bradbury wanted Guy's story to be an example for all of us. It's on the people not to accept the propaganda that is pushed onto them. But the fact that the message is so stark doesn't exactly make it that much of a thought-provoking statement about questioning responsibility. In real life, perhaps, but not in the story itself. In We All Fall Down, there is a line which is repeated multiple times. Duty is not always pretty. You don't always get a bright, shiny medal. And the funny thing is, it's said by two different people. The awful, brutal character of Victoria's father and the kind, sympathetic character of Victoria's mother. How could two characters with opposing beliefs preach the exact same thing? How can the concept of duty become corrupted? Victoria's mother, Maharaj Kumari Indira Devi, was an Indian princess living under the rule of the British Empire when she met Robert Byng, a dashing British lieutenant. They married, but she was never just a wife or an aristocrat, she was also a spy for the Indian independence movement. Her duty was to free her people from the often tyrannical rule of the British, even if it meant losing her husband and her daughter. In her words to Victoria, "Some things you must do, even though you hate to do them. I hope you are never faced with such a choice." Victoria's father, General Byng, rose through the military ranks whilst in India. He, like his wife, always had a strong sense of duty to his country, though his love for her meant he ignored her role in the Indian independence movement. They were, most likely at one point, a happy family. However, that couldn't last forever, and he eventually had her arrested and moved away to England with Victoria. There, he sent the children away, he commissioned Joy, and went on to steadily distract the people from their starvation. In his words to Victoria, "Duty isn't always pretty, but a few people on top doing their duty is the only thing that keeps us from savagery." As you can see, their outlooks are similar. So what makes one sense of duty justified and one corrupted? What makes one of them brave and the other a coward? For one, the general doesn't just do his duty, he decides for everyone. No one else in the town even has a role outside of reporting downers. Their duty has been stripped down to simplicity because Robert Byng views them as almost savage. Victoria's mother, on the other hand, does her duty to give people their agency, not take it away. But this is not yet the core of the issue. Secondly, despite the general's mantra of duty isn't always pretty, he doesn't completely abide by it. When he says not pretty, he seems to be referring to the state of the town and methods of control rather than his own self-sacrifice. He lives a fairly lavish life in comparison, with food for a year stockpiled away. Victoria's mother, on the other hand, sacrifices everything for her moral duty. She loses her family, her daughter, and she's thrown in jail. One could argue her position of privilege makes it easier to sacrifice these things, but that's besides the point. The point is, her mantra lines up with her actions. Except this isn't always the case. Someone might sacrifice everything for a corrupted sense of duty due to twisted reasoning. So while it's often a good indicator, especially when someone has something to gain from doing their duty, it's not always the case. Alright, I think it's time to go back to Cicero. His second source of duty was from one's particular place in life, including obligations to one's country and one's job. Victoria's father obviously falls into that category, but interestingly so does her mother. She has a duty to her country, her people, so what could possibly be the difference? Is it just happenstance that I agree with her duty and not his? No. In my opinion, there is concrete reasoning for why General Bing's sense of duty is corrupted. It's because he views his moral duty as synonymous with his duty as a general. Let me put it this way. Victoria's mother has a moral duty to her country because she wants her people to be free. It's founded in a real moral element. Victoria's father has a moral duty to his country because he has a moral duty to his country. That's it. He's confused Cicero's second point with his fourth and ended up with a catch-22. Why are you letting people starve? Because I have a moral duty to retain order. Why do you have a moral duty to retain order? Because it is my duty. Why? Because it is. You see what I mean? You could concoct some nonsense reasoning to explain it away, as people in real life often do, but that's the crux of it right there. Now, there is something to be said about loyalty, sure, but that's not entirely relevant in this situation. General Bing has entirely ignored Cicero's first point, our duty to each other as human beings, because he barely views the wellies as human. He is obsessed with what he thinks is his duty, preserving order, and the way he talks about it makes that very clear. While Victoria's mother is measured and logical in her phrasing,
Would you rather murder half the town, or let all of them commit suicide by starvation? Because those are your choices.
he throws around hyperbole and wild assumptions with a tone of complete self-righteousness.
I have to go. Duty insists.
Duty's not always pretty.
Duty's not always pretty. You don't always get a bright, shiny medal.
When you hear someone talk like this in real life, it's a major hint that their duty, or the duty they're trying to impart on you, is baseless. The things he's saying doesn't come from an internal moral compass or from natural law. Someone told him his duty as a military officer, and he's never deviated from what he thinks this applies to.
We've come to the end of our time. You have to stop it, you two. We're all going to starve to death.
Victoria Bing didn't view the people of Wellington Wells as human until it was too late, mistaking her father's sense of duty to his position as a moral duty, and in the end she lost everything. It's funny, she and the general divided people up in order to unify their support base. They said hate downers and wastrels, they're the problem, look at them and not us, that's your duty. Does that sound familiar? The sad part is, if Victoria had gone with her mother, she likely would have taken on that much more positive and courageous sense of duty. Instead, she only realised it at the very last minute, just as her mother feared. In time to save some of Wellington Wells, but 20 years too late for herself. The people will never forgive her for what she did. In all honesty, they probably won't forgive themselves either. It took the collapse of society and structure for them to realise that Victoria and her father's propaganda was bullshit, and that the only duty that matters is the one that transcends society and structure, the obligation we have to our fellow humans. Cicero knew that 2,000 years ago. It's strange that at a time when the rich are richer than ever, we in the real world are coincidentally starting to forget. I'm not attacking anyone in particular with that, I'm just saying that this DLC poses some rather interesting questions about responsibility. Victoria looked up to her father, he was an authority in her life, and her sense of duty was changed, skewed, corrupted, if you will. He said the thing, he said the title of what the hell? It didn't stem from compassion or doing the right thing, it became the right thing after it was already her duty. Her mother, meanwhile, had the right thing in mind before it became her duty. Do you see what I mean? One of those is logical and moral, the other isn't. The question I still can't answer is, how much should I blame Victoria for all of this? And this, just before I get into my final thoughts, is where I want to talk about my last video. Let's go. If you're okay with spoilers, then that video is not required viewing at all. Yeah, I lied. For this section, I'm going to briefly discuss how Wheel Fall Down relates to the base game's themes that I discussed in that other video. If you haven't seen it, don't worry, things are going to make sense very soon. Now, my conclusion in that video was that it was the people who were to blame for propping up the regime in Wellington Wells, as they allowed the propaganda to work for the joy to suppress their memories, to cover up the guilt of sending their children away. And if that's the case, how much then can we blame Victoria at all? Like I said, this was Ray Bradbury's entire point with Fahrenheit 451, and the reason that the big bad regime of that world is hardly mentioned. The people wanted to be manipulated and distracted from real issues, issues, so whoever's on top isn't really relevant. But in the world of We Happy Few, we can see who's on top, and her name is Victoria. When she says this in the final scene of We All Fall Down,
We all wanted to pretend. Don't you remember?
she is definitely right. Everyone was complicit, everyone was traumatized by the very bad thing. She just had a much larger role. But she was also the one that took down the regime, and along with Ollie Starkey, she was the only one that did anything at all. Doesn't she deserve some honor for that?
Goodbye, Mother. I hope you'll be proud of me.
When she stares up at the sky and hopes that she made her mother proud, although no one in the game sympathizes with her, I do, the player does. But the people have this overwhelming guilt that has suddenly been brought to the surface, and there's only one direction they feel like they can aim it, at Victoria, the person they view as the cause of it all. Now, although she did some terrible things, the influence from her father is clear from when she was a child. My view is that the DLC is using Victoria as a model case for someone complicit in the regime, just like Guy Montag in Fahrenheit 451. She is a bad person that did the right thing, knowing it would end up badly for her, because she finally viewed it as her duty. But the real villains of We All Fall Down, in my opinion, are the people who did nothing and blamed her for all of it. Victoria was heavily indoctrinated to a certain sense of duty by her father, but the people accepted theirs in an instant. They allowed themselves to be divided and they never sought to fight back. Doesn't that make them huge hypocrites in the final scene? And what if Victoria hadn't had the change of heart? Think about her journey in this DLC. A rich, powerful leader of a community benefiting from the suffering of others decides to change her mind and ruin her own life to save the people. Does that sound realistic to you? No, the most important message of the DLC isn't aimed at people like her, though I wish it could be. In real life, the people who divide us and control us aren't really in the habit of realizing how skewed their sense of duty has become and changing. It's them who ought to be doing better, but it's us who need to be, the people. The bottom line is, if you think it's your moral duty to support the killing of people in any capacity, or to spread hate about certain groups, or to ignore the suffering of others, chances are you've had the wool pulled over your eyes by someone like Victoria Byng.
You either fight back or you die.
Hatred is not patriotic. You can think what you want, it's a free country, but I urge anyone with strong views about these things to take a step back and remember that Cicero said our duty to each other as humans comes before our duty to our country, and all humans deserve a chance. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to take a nap. I'm not going back out to the woods. I was tempted to. I'm thinking no, but I'm just exhausted. I'm feeling good now. I'm liking the outfit I got on. If you're picking up on the very subtle messaging here, you know, appreciate you. I'm not going to do an outro, like, comment. I know I said don't subscribe in the last video, but I reckon you can subscribe in this one if your name starts with a vowel. There we go. No one else though. I don't want anyone else. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And yep, I think I'm done with We Happy Few now. Never going to talk about it ever again. Just going to go to bed, have a good night's sleep. All right? Oh, there we go. All right. Oh, shit, I forgot about Lightbearer.